Hello and welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about Protection Paladins. As you may be aware, I've basically been trying out a whole bunch of different classes and specs, with my end goal being, well, just to be proficient with just about every spec in the game, though I don't particularly care about healers because they just haven't really clicked with my playstyle previously. Still though, this time I've been trying out a tank, and it's been my Protection Paladin. So, what do I think overall of a Protection Paladin? Well, I actually think it's a lot of fun. If I'm honest, it's pretty sort of punchy. I think it's really quite a similar spec to play in terms of ret. You're basically a ret paladin that's pretty good at living, that hits things in a very retribution style manner. You still have a few core abilities that you whack around with to get some holy power, and then you just have your holy power spending. I think one criticism I have of the class though is the holy power spending is not very interesting. You just get up 5 stacks of Bastion of Glory via Shield of the Righteous, then you use Eternal Flame, and that's it. It's not much there, really. And I think that's a little bit of a pity. Maybe if there was 1 or 2 more options for just things you could do with your holy power, that would be nice. And then in terms of the actual spell effects and things like our spells themselves, they look, first of all, they look great, like just a general thing for paladins, and especially ret and, or at least from my experience, ret and prot, is that they look fantastic. Things like your Judgment, Crusader's Strike, and they look cool. Avenger's Shield looks fantastic. Light's Hammer is the literal hammer of Thor that shoots lightning out of it. It's a fantastic looking, class to play, same with its, it's just various different cooldowns and things like that. But a bit of a problem that I have with it is that it's kind of slow, in a way. Like, your actual just sort of, second to second rotation is slow. I just think it's really unfortunate. After playing a monk, which was really fast and punchy, this just felt weird to me. And I didn't like it. I didn't like those times when I just had to wait for a bar, wait for a resource. I just wanted to keep on, plowing ahead with my rotation. And maybe this just comes from me mainly being a DPSer. I'm always about hitting the buttons as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, in the most optimal order, because I get more numbers. And I suppose I do get more threat, but with, tank threat not being too relevant at the minute, I just didn't find it to be as much fun to play as ret. Though there is, I think, an inherent fun in rounding up mobs, sticking down a consecration, seeing all the numbers pop up, same with Light's Hammer. I think it's generally quite fun for a tank class, but I really need some sort of frame of reference. I have dabbled for like half an hour in a Brewmaster tank. I know how to play it pretty well. I mean, I know the theory anyway. And then I've tanked a good little bit on my warrior, and I think the warrior definitely in some regards felt just a little bit more, well, fast than this, and I think that's maybe one benefit that the warrior does have. Though the paladin does have some pretty cool things. So first of all, I like Shield of the Righteousness. It's this ability that you use once you get 3 holy power, and it will decrease the amount of physical damage you take by 44% for 3 seconds. So you basically hold your shield up for a little while, you take less physical damage. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, I think so, actually. I like the way you have to time it within 3 seconds of an ability. It means that you're really paying attention for things. That's nice, it keeps you active, keeps you thinking. So, Shield of Righteousness, you're pretty cool, and I like how Bastion of Glory works. I just wish there was maybe a little bit more interaction between your Holy Power generation Bastion of Glory and the fact that, to be optimal, you just wait till you have 5, stick on Eternal Flame, and boom, away you go. I'm not too sure if that's interesting. So there's one thing. Now next, they have, I think, pretty good cooldowns. Well, very powerful ones, but I think they're fun. So you've got Avenging Wrath, increase all damage and healing caused, or done whatever by 20% for 20 seconds. Your wings pop up, you feel a bit more powerful, sort of, and it's fun. That's cool. What I would ideally have is maybe just give Avenging Wrath a proc chance, like maybe an additional proc for a free Avenger's Shield, or give it something to really make you feel more powerful in terms of the buttons that you hit, rather than just, oh yeah, 20% more, boom, I'm good. Because another ability they have is Holy Avenger, and this means that your attacks do 30% more damage and healing, but they also generate 3 charges of holy power. And when you use that, cooldown, you're able to do more stuff because you get more holy power. It makes the spec play faster, and I think it really is a fun ability. So, it's weird. Blizzard are actually cutting out Avenging Wrath. I think they're putting the spell effect into Guardian of Ancient Kings, but I think that's actually the right decision, because as much as Avenging Wrath looks kind of cool, I don't think it's a particularly fun gameplay element, but I still want that visual to remain in the game, and it will in the form of Guardian of Ancient Kings, or at least the new version. Speaking of Guardian of Ancient Kings, it's awesome. Does it make a great deal of sense that this Guardian appears and then takes half your damage? Not really. I guess maybe it acts as some sort of absorb shield or something. I mean, lore-wise, not actually. But yeah, Guardian of Ancient Kings is cool. And I think it's going to be even cooler in Warlords when, you know, you pop Guardian of Ancient Kings, your wings pop up, and then there's a dude appears beside you and starts tanking damage for you. I think that's awesome. Really cool cooldown. That honestly is just great. And then in terms of the other cooldowns we have, I suppose there's Ardent Defender, which is just it's like a standard old tanking thing. It's pretty cool. You use it in a big oh shit situation, and that's fine. But then we have Divine Protection. This is really interesting, and this is something I definitely wanted to talk about. So Divine Protection is something you can use every 30 seconds, and it will reduce your magical damage taken by 40% for 10 seconds. Now, that reduces magical damage only. And then Shield of the Righteousness, which is your other thing that you can use to, you know, mitigate the damage you take, is physical damage only. Now, there is a glyph that can change Divine Protection to be physical damage instead of magical, but right now, let's just talk about magical. I like the way that there's a difference between magical and physical. It means that depending on the situation, you have to make a choice. I think it would be really cool if there was, I don't know, just like a boss which would periodically do both, you know, heavy magical and then maybe a bit of heavy physical damage, so that you're thinking between the various abilities that you can use. I think that's definitely nice. Then, of course, we have Divine Shield, and our good old friend that I'm sure you PvPers just love, Lay on Hands. Yeah, look, Lay on Hands feels great, Divine Shield feels great, and yeah, overall, I think the Paladins have got a pretty fun time when it comes to cooldowns. All the cooldowns look awesome, all of their main abilities look awesome, and while I think the protection is kinda slow in terms of how it plays, I really do just enjoy how punchy it looks, especially Avengers Shield. It's like you're Captain America, but better, because Captain America's shield doesn't automatically come back to him. Well, unless he throws it in a highly contrived manner that's also completely awesome. By the way, go see Captain America 2, it's fantastic. So, that's me just done talking about the main abilities of the Paladin. I think I should probably also talk about tanking in general, though, and how it's just sort of different, because I'm not a main sort of tanking person when it comes to the game. Honestly, I might consider it at some point. More as an off-tank, our guild has definitely got established tanks that are extremely skilled at what they do, and I couldn't hope to match that within a few weeks of gameplay, but tanking is fun, actually. It's not like a DPS where sometimes you just have a fight completely grokked, and you just sit there, and that's it, because you know exactly what to do. Avoiding the shit in the floor is basically just muscle memory. Well, as a tank, I feel like you do have to react to things. The gameplay of waiting for a tank swap and swapping at the right time and all the various little sort of uniqueness that they can put into that from fight to fight is kind of cool. I actually think that's a little bit more active, and yeah, it's nice. I just wish that maybe there was something the tanks could do to change the rate at which they gained these tank debuffs. Maybe if there was a thing the tank could interrupt, or maybe if a shield had a chance of blocking something, I don't know. But it's a little bit too deterministic for my liking. Still, though, I think it's a pretty cool idea. Now, I haven't really been involved in many fights that have had a different mechanics, so maybe like the Wrath of the Lich King style cleave version of dealing with tanking. I haven't dealt with those. Maybe they could be fun, maybe they are not. I just don't know. So bring on to another thing. We have Threat. Now, Threat, I like the idea of there being a little bit of a threat game with a single target boss, because I think that it is actually pretty fun to deal with as a tank. The problem is, it's not fun to deal with as a DPS, because you have to thrall yourself. That's a problem, and honestly, I think that it's for the greater good if it's not much of a thing to worry about in a single target. But then when you move on to AoE, there is a convenience factor there in the way Threat is at the minute. I don't think the game's default UI, which I'm not using, but just, you know, we should probably talk from the sort of the base level, is that the game's default UI doesn't do a very good job with tanking, I don't think. And, you know, telling people, like, your threat and all that. That's a little bit unfortunate. So that would have to be a lot more robust, and also I think you'd have to have more things in the way of, like, really fast, like low cooldown, like taunts and things like that. Because sometimes taking a big AoE pull, and then you've got that one douchebag hunter that's got his pet on growl, then you've got, I don't know, the Death Knight that's in blood stance for some reason that's just taking aggro, and all these little annoying things that sometimes happen. They're just not fun. And it's weird. I remember way back in Wrath, I used to tank a little bit on a warrior, and that was still back when, yeah, threat did matter a decent little bit. I even remember having to throttle myself on my hunter back then, so I wasn't out threatening the tanks. But then the next time I played it was in Cataclysm, and I was instantly amazed at the fact that my threat just didn't matter, because I always had it. So yeah, the whole threat thing's interesting. I haven't really played a tank enough to properly talk about threat, though I do find survival to be pretty fun, and I'm really interested to see how it's going to play out in Warlords of Draenor, because right now, it's, like, boss damage is so spiky that as a tank, I suppose you have to have pretty fast reflexes, and that's totally cool, but that said, because you have timers, you see things coming, right? Though in Warlords, healing is going to be a little bit less comparatively, but damage is also going to be less bursty from bosses. I'm certainly interested to see what that's like for a tanking game. I just think it could be more fun if things are a little bit slower and you're maybe hovering around 50 or 60% HP more often than you are now. That could definitely lead to more tension in the gameplay, which I think could be very enjoyable. And yeah, that's essentially that for tanking. I'm trying to think of other things to say about the Holy Paladin. I guess one thing I should probably mention is I think Paladin gear looks great. You know the transmog I use, you can see it in the video. It's one of my favorite transmogs I've ever put in a set of gear. I seriously just think it looks fantastic. And another thing is that I definitely want to try out a Death Knight tank, and I want to get a little bit more experience with a Monk tank, because both of those seem to be a little bit more heavy in the active mitigation. Well, then that a Monk was completely designed around it, and if you don't play a Monk right, then you're paper thin. Oh yes, actually, that's me done with that point, by the way. But one thing to mention, yeah, LFR tanking. So a little bit of a story behind me and the dingus, the other tank, I'm being a bit of a dingus too, but he's being more of a dingus, trust me. Yeah, that tank was kind of shifty. I don't know, like in Immersius, he was not tank swapping. There was one time, I think at the start I had like 3 or 4 stacks of the thing, and I got like insta-kill, but it's okay, because people rezzed me. Then it was actually okay for Fallen Protectors and Nourishen, for the most part. Though in Nourishen, he wasn't, like, he could have swapped earlier and it would have been a little bit easier to manage. And then moving on to the Sha of Pride, that guy was so bad. I said to him, like, look, you don't need to tank if you don't want to, because you can just go DPS, and the DPS can probably deal with the reflections, but I think he just decided, sure, you know, I'll pick up the reflections, that's fine. But he wouldn't stand in the prisons. He just stood still. He didn't even pick up reflections now that I think about it. And in that group, the DPS was so low that I had an 8.5 minute long fight, then a 10.5 minute long fight, and then finally half the group left and we got a good one, which killed the Sha of Pride. And that's one thing about tanking. Sometimes it is very frustrating when you're labeled, like, stuck with bad DPS. Especially when you're used to doing pretty good DPS yourself. It's really frustrating. I'm not too sure how that, like, you'd fix that problem. But in general, I think tanking, like for fights, it definitely keeps me more awake. Like, I mean, in an LFR context, it keeps me a lot more awake than DPSing, because I feel like I've got a more active role in the group, and I actually enjoy kind of semi-leading. And maybe this comes from it's sort of fun to order people about, and then see good things come of it, because legitimately, you can go into an LFR as a tank, and if people are being a bunch of, you know, random, kind of useless people, whatever, you can say, yo, you do this, just do that, we'll be fine, and we'll win. There's been a few times that as a tank, this kind of like inherent authority that people seem to give to tanks, paid off and the group was able to do better. Which is interesting. People just don't seem like they're willing to listen to a DPS who's trying to help them, but if it's a tank, oh, they're a tank, they're clearly worthy of listening to. Duh. So, yeah, there's that. Tanking. Look, for an LFR context, even if I was gearing up my Retribution Paladin, I would still just go in and tank, not only for the shorter queue, but because it feels a little bit more active, and I find it much easier to stay awake while tanking an LFR. It's been an interesting experience. I'll probably try it out on my warrior soon enough. And that's basically it for the video. Tell me, yeah, let me know what you think about tanking on a Protection Paladin, or hell, any class in that regard. It'll be interesting to know. I'll probably do a bunch of videos on Warlords of Draenor changes after a few more cycles of the alpha patch notes, so that, yeah, we just get a more refined version of the classes, because now that I've been playing more classes, I really do want to dive in to how the changes are going to affect things. I think the next class I'm going to play is or Spec anyway, is not shaman, a druid, yes, a balanced druid, because I was just looking at the Blizzard guide to how it plays, and then a few other obviously more complex ones. Gotta say, really, really interesting looking in terms of mechanics, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. But anyway, that's been it for me. Please stay tuned to the channel and subscribe for all the new Warlords of Draenor stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.